Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report. This is The Space. We bring you Black America's headline news, views, and opinions. I'm Romeo.
Hey there, I'm Brooke. I'm Demi.
Merry December. I'm Nielle.
All right, coming up for you on today's report, we're reflecting on World AIDS Day and its impact on Black Americans. We have a special guest here, President and CEO of I Choose Life Foundation, Tony Wafford. Stay tuned for that.
That's right, and former President Obama makes a surprise visit to a D.C. vaccination site. Also, Atlanta elects a new mayor, and today in Black History, we remember Rosa Parks.
We have all that and so much more. You know why? Because it's our voice and it's our truth. So let's talk about it.
Good evening, Soulmates. We begin the show with some breaking news. Jacqueline Avant, the wife of music legend Clarence Avant, was shot and killed during an apparent home invasion robbery at a Beverly Hills home. Netflix confirmed to multiple outlets. Police responded to a report of a shooting around 2:23 a.m. in the 1100 block of Maytor Place, according to Beverly Hills Police Department. Officers arrived to find one person suffering from a gunshot wound. The person was taken to a local hospital but did not survive, police said. The shooter was no longer at the scene when officers arrived at the Beverly Hills home, according to the department. No description of the suspect was available. Police did not identify the victim, but Netflix confirmed to Deadline and Variety that the victim was Jacqueline Avant. Jacqueline Avant married record executive Clarence Avant in 1967, and the pair have two children together, including film producer and former U.S. Ambassador Nicole Avant, who is married to Netflix CEO Ted Sarandos. A very sad story. At the end of the day, you know, we just seen him get inducted not too long ago into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he was the Black Godfather. You talked about that, Brooke, because he's done so much for so many people in the music industry. And this is just another story we're reporting here that's happening here in LA and across the country about home invasions and things like that this time of the year. It's very sad.
Obviously, many people familiar with him in the music industry, but the documentary on Netflix that I'm pretty sure was part of the Obama's production company, if I may be mistaken, but you know, so many people who know nothing about the music industry were touched by his story, touched by their entire family, and you just think, someone's life, she was 81 years old. Her entire life, she had to lose her life in such a tragic way. And it's awful.
I mean, to make it through a pandemic, Brooke, again, at 81, and to come through safe and sound and to lose your life in this way is absolutely tragic. And Romeo, back to your point, it really makes you, and I know for me specifically, I will just say terrified as to what's to come in Los Angeles. I mean, we're hearing about the robberies, people getting, stuck up at just eating at restaurants. It is so terribly scary. So if you live in the Los Angeles area, especially now throughout the holidays, just try to be as careful and safe as you possibly can.
Yeah, Mr. Avant and Mrs. Avant meant a lot, not just to the music community, but to the civil rights community. And they were like at the beginning of what it meant to mix art and activism. Just a tremendous loss, and, you know, prayers and heartfelt prayers to Nicole, her siblings, and Mr. Avant. I know he was a friend of the Sentinel and Bakewell Media, and he was always advocating for the things to uplift and empower Black people beyond the music industry. So the loss is really felt and really heartbreaking because Mr. Avant is an older man too, and we just don't know the impact that this will have on him. So we definitely should keep them in our prayers.
Yes.
Let's head to our top story for you now. Today, the entire globe marks World AIDS Day. This is a really important day. Concerns remain, of course, though, over inequalities and for a vaccine, the hope for a vaccine to prevent the disease that has claimed millions of lives since discovered in early 1980s. World AIDS Day was first observed in 1988 when the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention described it as the first ever global health day that was observed. The occasion is meant to serve as an opportunity for the world to turn their attention towards the epidemic, besides creating awareness about the disease and working towards ending the stigma around it. You know, one important thing that needs to always be said, you know, this is not a gay disease. This is not a men-only disease. This is something that everybody should know about, should be working towards kind of breaking the stigma. And this is something that we should all care about on every day outside of just today. Don't stop caring about this today.
And joining us now to continue and further this conversation of the impact of HIV and AIDS is having on the Black community at large is Tony Wafford, president of I Choose Life. He's also the CEO. And, you know, Tony, you've been an advocate for AIDS and HIV when the conversation was taboo. You know, now it's being brought to the forefront. And I just want to dig right into it. Black men are 8 times more likely to have HIV than white men, and Black women are 7 times more likely to have HIV and AIDS than white women. And we always talk about systemic racism in our criminal justice system and in voting. And one of the conversations is this systemic racism within our healthcare system?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you guys for having me. Absolutely, because what happens is, even though we're 30 plus years into the pandemic, Black people are still disproportionately impacted, still disproportionately suffering. And what happens too often when we talk about HIV/AIDS, we try to blame the victim with the crime. By that, I mean, Black people, we don't always necessarily have all the necessary resources. We don't have the access to the same things that other communities do. I think it's criminal, personally, that if you look at the HIV pandemic here in the state of California, well, most of the pandemic is right here in Southern California, and you look at San Francisco, who actually gets more money than all LA County to deal with the pandemic. Last time I checked, San Francisco is not as big as Long Beach. So I would argue that when the resources start following the pandemic, then I think we can get it under control. And also as a people, when we get to have the opportunity to create our own language and logic in terms of how we address this pandemic, because it's still a pandemic among Black people. And I think we really need, and I applaud you guys for actually bringing this out and really having this conversation around what HIV and AIDS is doing to our community and our people.
I am echoing you as well. I'm so happy that we're talking about this today on Fox Soul's Black Report. And so there are so many statistics and ratios that are all around the world, like one being Black people making up around 13% of the U.S. population, yet we only account for 42% of the new HIV diagnoses. But the real question is, how can we decrease this number?
I think through education, I think that hard conversation, I think including everybody in those conversations, because as you guys said at the beginning, it's not a Black or gay or straight conversation. It's a conversation for the community. I got involved many years ago as a straight heterosexual Black man, but I saw what was happening to women, and having 3 daughters, I knew I had a dog in the fight. And also I knew that we actually, again, I think the greatest thing that we need to do is have honest conversation among each other. Have honest conversation in terms of what we're doing, how to protect ourselves. Because I had to have these conversations with my daughters. I had to tell my daughters about, because I knew they were all engaged in they were having sex, they weren't married, but I had to be honest with myself and have them honest conversation in terms of how to protect themselves and not becoming HIV positive. Because you don't know what everybody's doing. You may think you do, but you don't always know.
That's true. Tony Wafford joining us today. We appreciate you taking out the time. So in 2019, the highest rate of new HIV infections was in the Black community. What are some of the reasons why we continue to contract the infection at a high rate?
I think stigma. I think access to health care. I think, what's really sad is that when you don't hear about a lot of things, we tend, the world as a whole seems to think that it's gone away. Well, it hasn't gone away. Black people are still disproportionately impacted, dying of AIDS. And I think we have to create our own language and logic and how we approach it. Well, again, we have to talk to each other in barbershops, beauty salons, non-traditional places like that. We have to talk to the church has to step up and honestly have these conversations in terms of what's going on in our community and make sure that our people have access to treatment and to care. I think that's vitally important to do that. Unless we do that, we're still going to have this problem.
I want to dig a little deeper into the stigma. You just brought it up. I think it's obviously one of the most important aspects of the problems when it comes to how we talk about HIV and AIDS, especially here in America. And the fact of the matter is, when we support people who are HIV positive, it's better globally. It's better overall. And so I want to know from you, what are some things that we can do, as a community in order to help together fight that stigma and push back against that stigma?
Well, first of all, it's not better global. Africa is still disproportionately impacted and infected. And one of the problems, if we talk about the continent, is the fact that some of the drug companies should actually remove some of these patents so they can get the drugs at a cheaper rate than other people, because that's where the greatest need is. Again, going back to how we get these rates down is actually create conversations amongst ourselves and how we frame these conversations in our own culture in our own language and logic of how we approach it, and not be afraid to talk about it. Everybody knows somebody who's engaged in same-sex activity. Everybody got a gay cousin, uncle, niece, nephew, aunt, whatever the case may be. And we don't really necessarily shun them, but we also don't talk to them. And we should advocate in the lobby for them and protect them. There's no way in the world our people should be dying right now and disproportionately impacted to the race. And let's not charge the victim with the crime. It also has a lot to do with access to health care, information that's actually culturally competent information where we can reach and teach our people.
Let's talk about the science of, treatment. A lot of people have said that Magic Johnson, who is, thriving after being diagnosed with HIV, a lot of people say that he had access to treatment that the regular person does not have. I want to know your thoughts about that and talk to us about the treatments that are out there. Do you think that they have improved over time?
Well, first of all, when we talk about Magic, if you put me in a $3,000-$4,000 suit, I'll look good too. He's not getting anything that no one else has access to. But yes, he does have, in fact, a diet and probably a dietitian, and he has all those, and a trainer and all that. But he's not. There's no medicine that Magic gets that anyone else cannot access. I know a lot of people that actually have been HIV positive longer than Irvin and actually are doing quite well. But to your question about the treatments and care, there's a new drug that I shouldn't necessarily call it true, but it's called pre-exposure prophylaxis, where you actually, if you're in what they call a discordant relationship, in other words, your partner may be HIV positive, you may be negative, where you can take this drug and it will lower your risk in terms of becoming HIV positive to almost non-existent. And again, those are conversations that we need to have, because I don't think our community, it's called pre-exposure prophylaxis or PrEP. I don't think our community has access, and certainly the knowledge that we should have in terms of how to access PrEP, which actually would make those rates go down. Because once your viral load is low and you become almost undetectable for having the virus, it's almost impossible to infect a loved one or a partner.
Mm-hmm. So you talked a little bit earlier about having daughters, that you inform them about the birds and the bees, and having a father that wants to inform you about this topic that we're talking about right now is awesome. So we have some soulmates, I'm sure, out there that probably don't know. Can you just enlighten us a little bit on how a person can contract HIV and AIDS?
Well, there are a couple basic ways. One, through intravenous drug use, sharing of needles through blood. You can also unprotected sex, having sex with someone who's HIV positive. And believe it or not, you can also, if a woman is HIV positive, she's lactating, you can also contract the virus through breast milk. But our biggest concern and problem is actually having unprotected sex, not using a condom and or not being transparent with your partner, letting them know if you're HIV positive. And those are the main ways that you can become HIV positive. But going back to what I was saying about my daughter, the hardest part I think that we have to do, guys, is have honest conversations. Because I also have a nephew who's actually a gay young man, and I had to actually show him love. He's HIV negative, but I showed him love and showed him respect, and showed him that he should value himself. Therefore, he won't put himself in harm's way. Because it's only when you're sneaking and doing things that you shouldn't be doing that you let your guard down. And as they always say, we're only as sick as our secrets. If in fact we can be honest with each other, straight up with each other, I think we can wrap our head around this, because I'm a spiritual man. God didn't bring us this far to leave us now.
Amen.
That is so true, Tony, and it's so important that we communicate and talk to each other about these things. So I want to ask you, what's the life expectancy for someone living with HIV/AIDS today? Also, what is it compared to 25 to 30 years ago?
Well, I think the life expectancy today is, I'm last smiling because I was telling a friend of mine, I'd rather have HIV than prostate cancer right about now, because if you take care of yourself, take your medication, you'll be fine. You'll be cool. Life expectancy is great for those that actually have access to it. But let's not confuse those of us that are fortunate to have access to medication, treatment, care, and doctors, and our brothers and sisters that still live under the freeway, that are living with shame, dealing with stigma, and not accessing and don't have access or refuse access to services that are available to them because of the shame in terms of how they contracted the virus and things like that. That has nothing to do with valuing our brothers and sisters, who they are as brothers and sisters and friends.
Tony, I want to go back to something you just said, because I think that obviously someone who has been doing the work on the ground, your perspective, I think, is really important here, because you brought up PrEP and two brand names of PrEP, Truvada Discovery. It's been groundbreaking, using even specifically Truvada as a PrEP has been groundbreaking. And I'm curious, does the existence of the drug being used in this way, does that give you hope? What's even just your reaction to it existing in this way now? Because obviously it has been before an HIV treatment drug, but as a preventative for people at high risk of contracting HIV, it has changed the world. And I'm curious of your reaction.
Absolutely. It gives me tremendous hope. But again, we have to, we can come up with all of these fabulous drugs, but guess what? If we don't take them, nothing's gonna change.
That's true.
We actually have to realize that we have to understand these medications, take the medication. It's like we used to say the same, take the test, tell the truth, and take the medicine. Those are the things that's gonna save us. We take the test, find out what HIV status is, take the medicine, and tell the truth about who you are and what you're doing, and not be ashamed.
Great point, Tony. Before we let you go, you have been doing this work for over 20 years and beyond, and you are all across the country advocating in Black communities and bringing awareness about HIV and AIDS. Before we let you go, can you give us your website and some information to keep up with you, especially for barbershops and beauty shops? They may want to help spread the word about awareness and protecting yourself.
Sure, and if I may, I'll do a shameless plug. Right now, I'm working on Barbercon with DKB Med, where we're going across the country, partnering with barbershops and beauty salons to actually teach and train the barbers how to become HIV advocates within the shop and create these conversations. And I can be reached at www.i-chooselife.com. And again, I've been doing this a long time, Neil. Actually, you remember when my hair was black. That's when I first started.
Well, thank you so much for what you do for the Black community across the nation and worldwide, and happy holidays.
You too. You're much too kind. You guys stay strong. Keep pushing.
You too. Take care. All right, students at Kimball Elementary School in Southeast D.C. expected to receive stickers, maybe a T-shirt, after getting a coronavirus shot on Tuesday afternoon. But shortly after workers began the vaccinations, a tall, gangly former president walked into the school's multi-purpose room. Obama was accompanied by Anthony Fauci, the government's top infectious disease expert, in the surprise event at a vaccination clinic. Now, the visit brought some star power into the polarized vaccination debate at a tenuous time for the Biden administration fight against the coronavirus pandemic. If you depend on who you ask, including me, I feel like this: if those two would have been teaming up at the beginning of this pandemic, a lot of people would not have empty tables for the holidays. A lot more people, I feel like, would be alive today if President Barack Obama was still in office, along with Fauci teaming up. He left a blueprint, right? He left the blueprint and the plan before how he left, and the ball was dropped. We know that by Donald Trump. So seeing this is very positive, it's very good, and it's very motivating for kids to get vaccinated.
Romeo, you just made me want to scream through the camera right now, because that is exactly what I was thinking.
It's a fact.
Just imagine that blueprint. Oh, I was just going to go there. You just, I love it. So that blueprint, imagine if we had Barack Obama in office and during the time of this pandemic. You are so right. So many lives would have been saved. And I just had to echo that, because that was just such an amazing point, Romeo. And I'll end it there, because that was just awesome. Absolutely right. All right, let's move on to the next story then. Okay, let's get into politics. We'll talk some more politics. Representative Ilhan Omar played a threatening voicemail she received from an unnamed caller during a press conference on Tuesday. Take a look.
For those of you who did not hear it very well, let me read you what the voicemail says. We see you, sand N-word bitch. We know what you are up to. You are all about taking over our country. Don't worry, there is plenty that would love the opportunity to take you off the face of this effing earth. Come get it.
Alongside Representatives Andre Carson and Rashida Tlaib, the three Muslims in the House of Representatives, they held a press conference calling on Republican leadership to hold Representative Lauren Boebert accountable after her recent anti-Muslim remarks.
The door's shutting. Like, I can't open it. Like, what's happening? I look to my left, and there she is. Ilhan Omar. Oops. And I said, well, She doesn't have a backpack. We should be fine.
Republican Representative Lauren Boebert of Colorado suggested to the crowd in September that Democratic Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota, whom she called black-hearted and evil, was a terrorist. So this was so very interesting. We were talking about it yesterday. Brooke actually sent a text like, wow, I cannot believe this is actually happening. So Jamel Hill said something very powerful. She tweeted about this yesterday, and she said that policy disagreement is expected. Like, you know, we expect for there to be some disagreements. But this right here is a very big problem. This is absolutely crossing the line. And the bigger problem is the GOP not addressing it. Just like we talked about AOC and the anime art that was published about her. And they're not taking any accountability for what's going on here. And also Ilhan Omar, I just had it up here and then I lost it. But she released a statement 2 days ago, pretty much saying that she accepted a phone call and she thought that she was going to get an apology. And she says that Lauren Boebert pretty much doubled down on how she felt about her. And it was just like, this is just scary and crazy times that we're living in right now, that no accountability for something that everybody in the world clearly feels was offensive.
You know what, when I see that, and it's very disheartening, because let's put it like this. If you're in the military, you're on the front line. Your life's at risk every day, right? You're protecting the country. I feel like a lot of representatives and people in the Democratic Party are on the front line now. Like, you have to live your daily life. You have to go on and do your business for your family and for your friends, but yet you have to deal with this. Now, as a country, we're going to disagree. Democrats, Republicans, we're going to disagree on many things, but at some point you got to stand together and say, look, this is out of pocket. Enough is enough. Right? We may not agree on certain things, but you cannot treat each other like this. And for this to continue to happen, and for her to think that it was funny and did it for a laugh, like, that's disrespectful in so many ways.
Yeah, this is supposed to be the country of, a country of religious freedoms, right? And, I sent the video to Demi last night. At the beginning of the video, we clipped it because it's graphic, but, you can hear the pain in her voice, kind of talking about all of the examples of Islamophobia that she's had to deal with. And you hear the voicemail and the vitriol in this man's voice as he calls her these things and as he threatens her life. And you hear her choking up. And there was even a moment where she talked about when she won. When she won, it was historic. When she won her election, Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi called her and to congratulate her and say, hey, is there anything you may need? Let me know. Welcome to Congress. And she said that she told Speaker Pelosi that she was worried that because she wears a hijab, that she wouldn't be able to be sworn in. And that Nancy Pelosi said back to her, essentially, this is the people's house. Mm-hmm. Everyone belongs here. Everyone has the freedom to worship their God in their way, and had to just comfort her. But you think about the fact that a grown woman, an elected official, because of what goes on around her, because of what she experiences, had a very valid feeling that she wouldn't be able to even enter Congress. And, it's so upsetting. Staying here on politics.
Oh, wait, I wanted to say something. I wanted to add something.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was waiting for you before me. I'm sorry.
So I just want to say that I don't think that people understand what comments like that mean to people of color. That's why they're called terrorists. And it really causes trauma to people of color when you're called the N-word, when you're called a jihadist. If you put yourself in the seat of when Muslims were called terrorists, right? They, jihadists. And for this white woman to do that to a person of color and the trauma that she caused to her. I've been called the N-word before, and it's very, it's an emotional roller coaster that it sends you on. And so for this to be happening in Congress and for the world to be looking at us, I think that something needs to happen. If the GOP can't do it, I don't know if the president can do it. The Department of Justice needs to investigate this woman, but she definitely needs to be censored. She definitely needs to have something happen to her. And I hope that the leadership in Congress, from the House and the Senate, do something. These are unprecedented times. And so unprecedented times call for unprecedented action. And I really feel for Sister Omar, Congressmember Omar, and all of the people of color that are being victimized in Congress right now by white Republican lawmakers.
More political news here. City Councilman Andre Dickens will become Atlanta's next mayor. So CNN has projected his win, defeating City Council President Felicia Moore in a runoff election to determine who will hold the the city's top post.
Come up here, mama. This is her right here. I told her, I said it was when I was 16. She said it was when I was 12 years old that I wanted to be mayor of the city of Atlanta one day. And look at us now.
So Dickens and Moore had advanced to the runoff after no candidate in a wide field got a majority of the vote earlier this month. The sitting mayor, Democrat Keisha Lance Bottoms, announced in May, you'll remember, she would not seek re-election. In, spreading outside of the city of Atlanta into the state of Georgia, we do have a bit of breaking news. This actually just in. Stacey Abrams has just launched a campaign, another campaign. She is running for Georgia's governor. This just happened. She's running with a pledge to fight for economic equality and expanding healthcare access, of course. This does set up a likely battle with incumbent Governor Brian Kemp.
We're going to see about that. That's going to be very interesting to see. But that's a major breaking news right there. And we were wondering what that next move would be. And now we see what it is.
But we knew this was coming because Stacey Abrams has set the tone. And she has done so much for this country, for President Joe Biden, what she's done for the state to pay for people's health care across the whole South. This is what leadership looks like. And so I'm really excited for this. She has the support of so many organizations right now. And we know that Georgia, with all of the voting suppression laws that they have and everything that's happening down there, this is her moment, this is her time, and hopefully she could get the seat that was taken from her.